This is The Difference Makers, a Paladin Security podcast. Each week, we take you inside the world of security for a first-hand look at the inner workings of the industry. But it's about more than just protecting property and manning events. It's about going above and beyond to make the world a safer and friendlier place.
Well, hello there and welcome to our first episode of 2023 and our episode 20 of The Difference Makers. For this special occasion, we had a very special guest, Paladin Security's President, Kalyk, who shared his vast knowledge and experience as a true leader in the security industry. Among many interesting topics, we talked about how he might be the most remarkable promotion from within example at Paladin Security, how he went from mentee to mentor, his secret sauce to success, which is that there's no secret sauce, and how he uses corporate values as a compass. We also talked about diversity, equity, and inclusion as a requirement for frontline employers, why Paladin's training is so far ahead of the industry standard, as well as some mind-blowing security trends that will impact the future of the industry, how to be the employer of choice in a difficult staffing market, and how Chad is steering Paladin Security in the right direction as president. Well, hello, Chad, and welcome everyone to another episode of The Difference Makers. I have to say, this is a very, very special episode. It's our first episode of 2023. It's our episode 20, and we have Paladin Security's president, Kalyk, here with us. Chad, how are you?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for the intro.
No, hey, we're super thrilled to have you here, honestly. Well, let's get things started. Let's talk a little bit about Kalyk, maybe a bit about your background, your education, and how did you bump into this exciting world of security in the first place?
I was born in Burnaby. I left when I was 19 to Victoria and went to UVic to go to university. I was really lucky to get to play soccer when I was there, and that was a driving factor to join such a strong soccer team and really cool school. So ended up staying in Victoria for 11 years. When I finished university, I was in the policing process in a couple different areas, and I moved back home to continue my summer job, which was with Metro Vancouver. And I'd come back for a few months and was in the policing process. And I got told from my employer that I wasn't going to get extended. My contract was going to be finished. Mm-hmm. And so I missed Victoria a lot, missed my friends, missed kind of the whole vibe of the city, and decided to plan a trip that weekend. Went back to Victoria, rented an apartment, decided I was moving back at the beginning of January. Ended up basically coming back to work on Monday, got told that my contract had been extended, and had to get into the bad news that I was actually moving back to Victoria. And so I went back to Victoria with literally no plan and no idea what to do. And I was a sociology and history major in school, and thought I'd come out of university and have, the world's my oyster. I could do whatever I wanted to. In reality, that's not how it works. It's not that simple. So I applied for everything I could. I applied to be a driving instructor. I applied to do laboring stuff, and ended up seeing an advertisement from Paladin Security Systems, and went for an interview with them. And I started with Paladin February 6th, 2006. So it's right around 17 years ago now.
Wow.
And that's how I collided with the organization. And it's pretty cool. And I feel really lucky during that 17 years, on a personal note, I come to work every day and I just love it. And on a more personal note, I met my wife at work. So yeah, really, really tied to the organization, and feel really lucky that I happened to collide with them in early February 2006.
That's awesome, Chad. That's an amazing story. And even that you met your wife at work, that's crazy. Let's talk a little bit about your progression through the ranks now that you were at Paladin. What were the roles that you held in between to get to where you are today?
Yeah, I started, I was hired by what is now Paladin Technologies. So at the time it was Paladin Security Systems, PSS. And I was hired as a community representative, which was basically selling alarm systems in Victoria.
Right.
And I was the first employee in the city. The guarding business had just landed a contract with the provincial government, quite small contract, doing some patrol work for the government. And so I started in February, kind of all by my own. And basically I had to learn about the technology of alarm systems and how they worked, and go and pound the pavement. It was very much a door-to-door sales role. And that was kind of my foray into the business. which was obviously quite humbling.
Yeah.
Not being in sales at all. And I remember I was so excited to have a job. I had this tiny little apartment in Victoria, and it was a little bit too expensive for somebody that didn't have any income. So I was quite excited to call my parents and tell them, like, hey, I took this bold step, moved back to Victoria, and I figured it out.
Yeah.
And my dad said, who? and I said, Paladin, have you ever heard of them? Their head office is at the time, it was just on Beta Street, which is literally 3 blocks from my elementary school and 4 blocks from my parents' house. And it's a big organization. I said, you never heard of it before? And nope, never heard of it before. And he goes, what are you going to do in sales? Like, you don't know how to sell anything. And my dad is extremely supportive, as is my mom. But he was trying to give me some, I don't know if it's humble pie or just like, this decision. And yeah, I guess I never looked back.
Oh, that's such a good story. Well, I guess you may be Paladin's most remarkable example when it comes to its promotion from within philosophy. So, Chad, how has this helped you develop personally and professionally to become the leader that you are today?
Well, I can talk a little bit about my progression with the organization to how I got to my role, which is, I still pinch myself, I feel like. So I started in Paladin Security Systems, Paladin Technologies, if you will. And then we were in the market, our small guarding operation. We had 3 employees, I think, on 4 employees, maybe on the guarding side, sharing an office. There was an RFP that came out, so a request for proposal, which is one of the main drivers of how we take on new business. And I didn't know what to do with it. And so I called back to head office and got in touch with somebody from the guarding division at the time. And he said, I'll come over and we'll write it together. Are you okay with that? And so I thought to myself, well, that's pretty neat. Senior leader is going to come over and help me with this RFP. It must be important. And one of the things I felt really comfortable with is, as I mentioned before, I took history in school and basically you have to write 20, 30, 40 page papers consistently. So I'm pretty comfortable with writing. And so he came over and we wrote the RFP together, and he told me a lot more about the guarding side of the business and spent some time with me and just passed on what the company was all about. And it's not like I didn't know about the business, but I think I was blinded by how challenging my sales role was. There's an alarm company on the island that's extremely well known. And I remember you're up against the ADTs of the world and people kept saying, Paladin who? And it was really tough. I had some really tough days in the pouring rain, knocking on doors, asking to talk about alarm systems with people, and them telling me to get off the property and all that fun stuff.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah. It was tough. It was extremely challenging. I think there was times where I was like, I don't know if this is for me. And then I got this response for an RFP and spent some time with the chief operating officer. And kind of felt like, hey, maybe there's something here for me. Yeah. And, we did not win the bid. We ended up winning the bid many, many years later, but we didn't win the bid. But I guess I got a bit of exposure to him as well.
Right.
And he approached me fairly shortly after that about potentially taking on an account manager role for a site in Victoria. And I kind of said to him blindly, I'm happy to help, whatever I can do. And that was my first foray into the guarding side of the business, which was really great for me because I started to grow and it really clicked with me, the dealing with people. So even though I wasn't a security professional, I tried to be responsive and supportive of the customer and really run through walls to service them in the right way and really take care of our team on the ground and hire good people and coach them along the path. And it just clicked with me. I really liked it. A lot more than pounding the pavement with selling alarm systems.
Yeah, anything to get you out of sales, right?
Well, it wasn't so much out of sales because I don't actually mind the sales process. I think the walking unsolicited cold calls are really difficult. And so we were getting a little bit of traction on the sales side and I started doing a little bit more, not just alarm systems, but small access control systems and cameras. And then was also taking care of the account. And I found that really fulfilling because I was working on both sides of our business, right? Technology and how do we augment security officer services with technology. And it was really a fun time. It was hard to balance both. But it was really cool because at that time, I was still the only employee really in the office in a lot of cases. And we kind of started getting a little bit more momentum. And so I ended up having to do, reception, scheduling, human resources, like you name it. I did it, out to sites and creating post orders and spending time on the ground with our teams and supporting our clients however I could. So that was really the kind of foundation, I think, for learning about our business. And you treat people the right way and you try to support them in what they're trying to do, and you give them fair and clear direction and hold them accountable to that. And the team does well. And so shortly after that, we started getting some more momentum in the market. I kind of signed my first contract by myself for the guarding business, which was just the most surreal feeling I ever had.
That's awesome.
It's called Market Square in Victoria. And I tried so hard to land that contract and was successful and just felt over the moon. And shortly after that, the business kind of kept getting momentum, kind of one little step at a time. And I got kind of named branch head, I guess, for the region. And we were still really small, like, 20 or 30 staff, I think, at the time. But
it was a huge step. Yeah.
Yeah, things were moving in the right direction. And I say a lot of my career I've been lucky to be in the right place at the right time. And I think that's a good example. Maybe I was the only choice, or maybe I was the best choice. I'm not sure. But I was determined to make a go of it because I really, really started drinking the Kool-Aid, if you will. And seeing the Paladin difference and seeing everything about the family and how the culture was. And I was getting all these opportunities, and I just felt that was really rare. And I remember my parents saying to me, like, what a cool company. They're just willing to give you that opportunity. You don't have any experience doing it. And I kept asking questions and trying to learn from other people. And we did really well in Victoria. We laid the foundation for what we have today on the island, which is very much a market dominant business. Definitely the employer of choice and provider of choice over there in the security industry. Mm-hmm. And I was part of that journey. But in the back of my head, I always knew I wanted to come back to Vancouver. And I also wanted to, being excited and fulfilled by the growth I was having, could I make it at head office? Could I make it at a bigger market? And so I planned with my boss at the time, and we'd been working on it for a couple of years, working on a plan to get me over to the mainland. And I got the opportunity to be the director of healthcare. We had a big healthcare security contract at the time, and it was right before the health authorities all amalgamated and they sole sourced the business. We were about a year out from that. So I came in and was tasked with trying to steady the ship and improve on our product to get us ready for the RFP and dive into healthcare to kind of round out my security skill set, because healthcare is a very dynamic, challenging, really fascinating part of the security industry. And I had no exposure to it on the island. So I came over and just had a fantastic client at the time and really enjoyed the team that was working with me and took the plunge and moved back to the city that I was from. And again, that office was super close to my parents' house, and got to spend more time with them after being away for 11 years. And
and your dad was getting to know the company now?
Yeah. It's one of those things that our industry, I always say, if you're not in an industry, you don't really notice some of the things.
Totally.
Like security officers and the badges that they're wearing on their shoulders. And then when you're in the industry, you have some exposure to, you're like, geez, I see you guys everywhere. Or same thing with alarm decals, right? You look at around residential areas and you see lawn signs, and there's Paladin lawn signs all over the place, and you can't unsee it once you're in it. So obviously my dad and mom, super supportive and really excited to see my career progression. And I would say that they were just flabbergasted that a company would be so willing to support an employee in their growth journey. And I was young, right? I already had so many different roles and no real idea what was going to come next other than that healthcare role I was taking, and really proud to be a director for the organization. And a funny thing kind of happened. We went to bid and we won the healthcare contract. And my coworker at the time was the director of operations for, we call it the general duty business, but it's basically all the business outside of healthcare. And I was the healthcare director, and he was from healthcare and wanted to try his hand in the rest of the business. And I was the opposite. I was from kind of the general duty or, post-secondary verticals, retail verticals, commercial
Right.
office verticals, all the other stuff that we do, which is obviously a big part of our business. And so we ended up switching roles.
No way.
We won the contract and I was super proud of that. And then we switched roles and I got exposure to the rest of the business in Vancouver and was still overseeing the Victoria branch. And shortly after that, after I was director of ops for Vancouver, I ended up quite quickly after that moving into the vice president for BC. And then I took on Southern Alberta, which was Calgary and Lethbridge. And so I was doing BC and Southern Alberta. And then I was really lucky to get promoted into an executive vice president role. Fast forward a little bit more, I took on the prairies and ended up doing basically all of Western Canada, if you will. And then in 2020, after really working kind of behind the scenes and learning from our chief operating officer and our CEO at the time, the next step was to move into the president's role for Paladin Security. And again, we kind of revamped our organizational structure to support our growth and get us set up for the next phase of the business. And in January 2020, I started my role as president for Paladin Security, about 2 months before the pandemic. So it's been an interesting 3 years, if you will. And that's where I sit today.
That's amazing. That's such an amazing story. And I guess, you talked a little bit about why you decided to grow within this specific industry, because they supported your development and your growth, and you were in so many roles. That's so great to hear. Now, in previous episodes, our guests have had one thing in common, and it is that they always had a mentor that kind of supported their career and showed them the ropes, took them by the hand and got them to where they are today. Did you have any big mentor that along your journey with Paladin that helped you get to where you are today as president, Chad?
Yeah, the answer is everybody does. Like nobody can do it themselves, and Paladin's just continues to prove that we'll go out of our way to be that support structure. And I think that's one of the unique parts of our culture. But I think there's a couple of things, as now in a leadership role, I really believe in knowing what you can help people with, and then knowing who to put them in touch with for things that you can't help them with. And, one person isn't enough to be a mentor for somebody. I think you need to be more well-rounded than that. And you need to take the best take snippets, if you will, from each person around you. And it could be good or bad. It could be something that you really take to heart and create as your own or improve and make it your own. So over the years, there's been countless thousands and thousands of snippets from so many different people. But I'd also say that there's kind of phases of mentorship, right? 17 years is not forever, but it's quite a long time. And I was asked this question quite often, especially, when I was kind of in my late 20s, early 30s, why are you still there? Like, it's crazy that you're still there. And that was kind of at the time where a bit of a gig economy was starting, and folks were chasing different roles in different organizations to grow, right? They'd plateau someplace and they'd have to move to another organization. And I just said, if I'm constantly challenged in my organization, there's no need to jump ship or move somewhere else. And I just so challenged and so supported in the process. And also the rapid growth it just made it really fascinating to be a part of. So I also have a core value of loyalty. So it was easy to stay loyal to an organization that was so loyal to me. But in terms of the mentorship, you kind of go through phases. Like early on, I had a person named Lawrence Benjamin who had originally hired me, and he was just fantastic when it came to sales and people skills and reading a room, and really absorbed and learned a lot from him, and never would have been able to sell a single alarm account if it wasn't for him. And obviously, if I didn't do that, I probably wouldn't be here, right? Because there's a bit of an expectation there. And then as I grew into the guarding business, without a doubt, Jason Bajan, who's the president of our US operation now, Paladin Security, he really taught me about the business. At the time, he was my boss, and he was the one that helped me kind of go through the plan of moving back to Vancouver, and gave me so many opportunities over the years. And then once I moved to Vancouver, my career started taking a bit of a different different phase, I would say, moving into director roles and then vice president, executive vice president, and now my current role, like you start moving into more of an executive leadership capacity. And Ashley obviously has been a big mentor for me, learning from him and his tenure in the organization and his entrepreneurial spirit is just really amazing to be a part of. And Ashley said to me, I think we want to get you some external mentorship as well. So you're learning from best practices in other industries and making sure that we're benchmarking and doing the right things. So I joined an executive CEO group quite a few years ago now to try to get that mentorship. And my forum chair, her name's Sue Matheson, she's been such an inspiration for me and I continue to learn from her. We're still part of a group that gets together and connects to try to make each other better. And she's really helped me round out my leadership capacity and continue to push myself. And then the other cool thing about our industry is we get exposed to so many different customers. And over the years, customers have helped me sometimes as much as folks within Paladin. So we've got folks like Kim Harrop, who was part of my first contract, really honest and forthright with me about expectations and what she required to run her property in the right way and really challenge me to push the limits and be better. And I learned a lot through that relationship and, considered her a friend when she retired quite a few years ago now. But it was a really unique journey. She kind of helped me along the path. She introduced me to her friends and we landed more contracts because of it. And was such a great mentor to me. And then when I moved to Vancouver, Glenn Magel, who's the security leader at BCIT, contract we've held for about 30 years, was the same. He just took it to another level on this security side of thing and how to really think strategically. And BCIT really believes in promotion from within and succession planning and growth within their organization. And so that really helped me kind of round out some of the skill sets maybe I was missing in a smaller market. He's just an amazing.
No, it sounds like you had some amazing mentors, and I guess ultimately you become a mentor yourself for a lot of people out there. So speaking about mentorship, Chad, what would be your advice for people out there looking to join or grow within the security industry, just like you? Maybe some of your learnings along the way that made you successful.
I think the first thing I would say is I'm no different than anybody else. And I say that with the most humility I could ever have. I feel lucky I've been in situations that have enabled me to take those next steps in my career. But I think that fundamentally, I don't have any secret sauce. I'm not exceptionally intelligent. I'm not amazing in one way or another. Maybe I'm pretty well-rounded. But there's so many fantastic people that work for organizations that have higher skill sets than I do that can do whatever they want in our business. And I think that's an important place to maybe anchor at. Beyond that, I'd say sometimes this is going to make me sound a little bit old school, is nothing replaces hard work. Nothing does. You have to put in time and effort and energy. And there's two reasons I say that. One is when you work hard for something, it really matters to you. And that has an impact on those around you. People can tell when you've worked hard for something and you care a lot about it. And I think people they want to be around folks that have that. They feel it. They want to be around it.
Definitely.
And I think the other thing is that sometimes is missing a little bit is patience. I'm not talking about 10 years in the same role. I think patience sometimes is somebody saying, I'm ready to take that next role. And your mentor or your leader saying, I just need you to work on these couple things. And a couple months pass and then the opportunity happens. I think sometimes we're quick to write off opportunities because it doesn't happen immediately. But if you can just waited a short time, especially at Paladin, something happens. Something happens that allows that person to take the next steps in their career if they're doing the right thing. So patience is something that, you can get a bit excited. You say, I want to do it. I deserve that role right now. And you might, but sometimes there's reasons behind that extra time to round you out a little bit more, to even make you more prepared for that next role. And I do believe at Paladin, we have people's best interests at heart and we want folks to grow. And so if people can bring a little patience, that really helps in the process. For me, what's been most impactful in my career and I think is the reason why I'm in the role that I'm in now is know yourself. If you can figure out how to know your strengths and weaknesses better, and use your strengths as your superpowers and really lean into those areas that you're strong in to create value to an organization or value to your team, And then really manage through your weaknesses. Don't shy away from them. Figure out how to surround yourselves with people that augment your skill sets. So I know on my team, there's some fantastic people that do things that I could never do. And that's because I know that they're weaknesses of mine. And I think that's pretty good advice for people to say, if you don't really know what you're good at and what your weaknesses are, and you can't articulate it really easily and succinctly, you need to know more about yourself. And that'll really help you catapult your career from my perspective, because it did for me. It just allowed me to really know what I can do more of to be exceptional, and what I really need to work on to round myself out to be a well-rounded leader and an employee for the organization.
That's such great advice. I love what you said about when you work hard for something, it matters to you, and that's contagious and people want to be around you. That is such a strong advice. I love it. Now, we were talking about culture earlier. The Paladin family has such a unique, strong and rich culture, and recently introduced the CARE values. And CARE is an acronym where the C stands for being curious, the A for being accountable, the R for being respectful, and the E for being exceptional. Now, Chad, do you think that these values will have a major impact on Paladinians as we move into 2023?
I might not answer this the way you think I'm going to answer it, but I'm going to say no and yes.
Okay.
And I say, you say major impact, and I answer no to that because we're not creating something new. We've had this culture that has evolved and taken a life of its own over the 45 plus years of business that we've had. And it continues to surprise me with how strong and driving our culture has been. So no, I don't see it having a major impact on the organization. But at the same time, yes, because the reason why we went through a culture evolution project was to simplify what had evolved over the years, to make it easier to articulate, easier to absorb, and then easier to add to when you come to the organization. And so from that capacity, yes, because we've made it simpler. And I think we've rallied around some core values that are really important to our people. And folks want to be aligned with a business that has strong values.
Yeah.
And values that connect with their personal values. And I think we've done a good job of articulating that through the CARE values. If we can move the needle a little bit more and make it easier for people that are new to the organization to absorb what we're about and latch onto it and want to be a part of it, then we've done our job.
100%. I think it was just putting a name to something that was already there. And as you said, simplifying it and articulating it so people can identify with something more material that was already there. I love it. Now, how do you carry these values, curious, accountable, respectful, and exceptional, in your daily work, Chad?
The great thing about the value system is that they're embodiments of people's personal values. So a lot of these things I feel huge impact on my personal life. And so it makes it easier to want to live them when you're at work. But I think our value system, there's going to be ebbs and flows, right? You might be more focused on curious because you're in learning mode. You might be more accountable because you got a project to do and you've got to deliver for an employee or one of our customers. You might be sitting on the diversity committee and really focused on respect or being respectful of folks in our organization, or we might be innovating something through our innovation group, and you might be really focused on how to make Paladin exceptional. But I think for me, it's just trying to use those values as a compass. And so at times when you're contemplating, have I taken the right actions, or have I made the right decision, rooting yourself in your compass, which is our value system, means we're probably going to get the decision correct most of the time, more often than if we don't pay attention to the values. I always try to bring it back to our value system. And when I'm making decisions, saying, is this reflective of our values, and would our team be proud of it and proud of the decision that's being made? And I think that really helps me. And seeing the culture evolve over many, many years, it's nice to have that simple, easy to digest compass.
Yeah. And you mentioned diversity. And I mean, diversity plays a big, big part in culture. So how do you think DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, empowers Paladin?
The way I would describe this is, we're in 30 different cities in Canada where we have branches, service many more cities than that through those hubs. But we can't fundamentally do our jobs on the front lines if we're not representative of the communities we serve. And so from a diversity perspective, if we're not diverse, we're not doing our jobs properly. We have to be able to empathize and connect with the communities that we're providing services for, or else we're just not going to be successful. And so obviously we're doing something right because we've been very successful in our business. And I think that's because we do value and respect diversity and want people to be a part of our organization, no matter who they are, where they come from, and want them to be successful. And we're happy to value them along their journey. And, as long as you do your best and work hard and care about our values, you can do great things here. So I think for us, it's much simpler than this lofty, ambitious goal of being a diverse and equitable employer. It's like we cannot do our jobs if we are not diverse and equitable.
Mm-hmm. It's embedded in the company for sure.
It has to be, and so it's our jobs to take that and run with it. So how do we make sure that we're encouraging more females in the security industry? Well, we need to create more opportunities for females. That's really what it's about. We value the contributions of females, and we need to try to have more females apply in the security industry so that they can be the next generation of our leaders and executives. We have to take measurable, actionable steps to achieve that. And the same thing comes from having more diverse leadership, encouraging folks from different backgrounds and different upbringings with amazing skill sets to be the next generation of leaders for us. And so again, we have to take measurable, actionable steps to make an impact there. And I'm really proud of what we're doing, but we can always do more. And again, it's rooted in what we do every single day.
Exactly.
So it should be a part of all of us. It should be something we all want to focus on and all make an impact on.
100%. That is so well said, Chad. So I guess we already kind of talked about it, but bottom line, what do you think makes Paladin so great at retaining, engaging, and celebrating its employees?
Well, we can always be better. There's a time in the world where right now there's a bit of a gig economy where people are maybe less reliant on that kind of stereotypical 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
We suit well for that because people can come pick up a couple shifts a week if they want to work for us and have kind of a part-time work to add some extra income to what they need to do to meet their life goals. But it really is, for me, it's going to be an easy answer, and you probably assume what I'm going to say, but it's about our culture and the opportunity we can provide people to develop themselves, take on more responsibility, learn new things, pass on their knowledge to others. And so I think we're unique that way. Our industry, we're really trying to move the needle on entry-level pay rates, but we have to grow people for them to be able to achieve their own personal goals. Like, we want them to grow and make more money and be in more impactful positions and use their knowledge to help others and create an ongoing kind of self-perpetuating promotion from within strategy, right? That's really the fundamental that we're trying to take care of. And that really lends itself to our culture and what we're all about. But I also think that we're really good at bringing people along and helping them achieve their goals, even if it's outside of Paladin. So one of the things that is kind of against retention principles is, listen, if you want to come work for us for 3 or 4 years or 2 years or 1 year, whatever that might be, and you want to be an exceptional employee and impact the organization, impact our customers, impact your fellow coworkers, and then you want to move into corrections or policing or the ambulance services or be a nurse practitioner or whatever it might be transparent about it. We'll help you down the path. We've got courses like Paladin to Policing to help people on that law enforcement journey. We're okay with letting people go if that means they can fulfill their career aspirations. And so I think that's a bit unique because most people want to lower that turnover number, but we really calculate good turnover and measure ourselves based on that. Maybe it's a career with our customer, and we're really proud of that fact. And so I think really, again, that comes down to our culture and the way we've tried to set up our organization. But I think that does help, retaining and engaging our workforce.
For sure. And you were talking about these courses and programs that Paladin has, like Paladin to Policing, that help employees secure employment in law enforcement or even in other industries that align with their career aspirations. And I think a big part of it is also the training and the experience that they get here in order to build a resume or get the necessary tools to transition into whatever they want. So speaking about training, what is your take on Paladin's industry-leading training? How do you think it stands out from others in the industry?
I think what makes it stand out, it's not every organization, so I'm not trying to stereotype the industry, but the bare minimum, the legislated minimum is not enough. Mm-hmm. So what our governments dictate as the standard for security training is just not even close to enough to give people the skill set or the comfort to their jobs properly. And so inevitably, when the minimum's that low, some people and some organizations choose to follow that, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what we have to fight against as an industry. It's like, I'd equate it to your driver's license. Doing your driver's license course, you can just go and, I think, challenge the exam, right?
Yeah.
Is that the standard of driver we want on the roads, or do we want to have some enhanced training for people so that they're more comfortable and we reduce accidents? And it's probably not the best analogy, but my point being that the baseline doesn't mean that's what industry should follow.
Right.
And that's something we need to fight against and make sure that we're pushing the limits beyond that. And so I think what makes it stand out is our training, whether it's pre-deployment or on-the-job training or ongoing training after that, is so far ahead of what most of the industry does. It just sets us apart because we're spending more time getting people ready to do the jobs that we expect them to do. Mm-hmm. And, if you think about it, I often say it to people like this, like, have you ever gone to work and been really unsure what to do? And I try to tell the story of going with our patroller on an alarm call. Mm-hmm. Never had to deal with keys, multiple keys, coded keys, enter a premise when the alarm's blaring, under pressure to clear the alarm, and trying to find the right key that fits in the door.
Yeah.
If you don't give that person any training of what to do, who to call for help, how to go through the keys properly to know which one to use, what to do when the lock kind of jams, make sure you shimmy the door a little bit and rock it back and forth, because not all doors are easy and simple to open. I remember when I went to my first alarm call, it was scary.
Yeah, I bet.
I was petrified. And so I root that training in that experience for myself is like, we don't want our people to be out there feeling that way. They have really complex, demanding jobs in environments that are so challenging, just as challenging as the police deal with on a daily basis. We're in the same environments, dealing with the same people.
Right.
We just have different roles and responsibilities. And so to let our people do amazing every day, we have to make sure we provide enhanced training and improve delivery of that training. And the overarching goal is to professionalize our industry and increase pay rates and drive people's careers in security forward.
Right. I guess like what I want to ask next, Chad, is what are some of the skills, tools, or knowledge that you have gained through Paladin's training that boosted or impacted your career? And I guess, do you still use some of those skills today?
Yeah, there's so many. It's really tough to pick one. But, I was part of our management training program kind of in some of the first versions that we've had. So Paladin does have a leadership development days, management training program, director training. And I was part of a lot of that journey to round out my skill set and make sure I was focused on the right things according to the organization to be successful here. Over the years, I've taken presentation skills and public speaking skills, which I found super impactful, to see yourself on video and then to be able to be a better presenter to help win business for our organization and opportunities to service really great contracts.
Or to record a podcast.
Yeah. I think the other one is a couple that are really impactful on my life. And I mentioned before about knowing yourself, and when it comes to really understanding who you are and what you're all about, and what your strengths and weaknesses are, and how you like to communicate with others and articulate those strengths and weaknesses I talked about earlier. And I did that during my time with Paladin. And that really helped me take a huge step forward in my career. And I really think when you can blend life and work, you're in for something sweet. And that's what I feel a lot of learning I've taken from Paladin. I've tried to apply in my personal life and vice versa. And I think that's one of the reasons I've been successful here.
Definitely. I think when you carry your work training and life training and you combine them, you kind of become this really well-rounded person. Now, I want to go into the security industry as a whole today, Chad. So where do you think the security industry is going? What are some of the trends you've seen that could impact the industry in coming years, I guess? Yeah,
there's been a lot of trends for a lot of years that do take a bit of a life cycle to come to fruition. So one of the things the industry's been talking a lot about is, integrated guarding or smart guarding, if you will, which is really use of technology to augment service delivery. And I think technology augmentation will be a big part of the next version of our industry. So that's a key area that I see us in our industry moving into is really equipping our frontline security professionals with more information and more technology to support service delivery. When we add that on to our base services of providing people, will really move our industry forward and drive better outcomes for our customers. Mm-hmm. And we're already doing this with a few clients. But as this becomes the norm and we take on non-traditional security roles, that's just going to drive better value for our clients and continue to professionalize our industry, and pay rates increase with that. And that's really what it's all about. That's why we're here.
Wow. You basically answered my next question, which I was going to say, what do you think frontline focused employers need to focus on to continue to be successful in a difficult staffing market and economic conditions? But
yeah, there's a couple more things in that. Just, it's been really hard the last few years. There's not enough people to fill the job market. Immigration dropped rapidly during the pandemic. That's a key area that we augment our workforce numbers. Fundamentally, that's a really deep and complex problem. And so we can't really control that. That's more government mandates and directions. But what we can do is speak to our customers and have conversations around living wage, valuing our people in the right way, which we've been doing for quite some time. And more of that gains traction. How do we pay people more equitably and start them off at a better baseline, and then give them opportunities to grow within contracts or within other sites so that their career develops and they can make a good living in security, because you can. And that's a key area. But, I think as you go back to that immigration, we have to focus on our diversity initiatives to attract those new immigrants who will inevitably support the employment market that we need them to. I think to be the employer of choice, I don't think it's a secret sauce. I don't think it's rocket science. You just have to do what you say, focus on your values, and put our people first. And I think if you do that, you will continue to be the provider of choice. And if you stop doing that, you won't.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess even through these challenges, how is Paladin leading the security industry through these tough times that you're mentioning and expanding our footprint in the process?
Growth sometimes is a scary word for people, and our organization has grown very rapidly and continues to do so. And we're not about growing for growth's sake. The reason why we grow is we want to continue to create opportunities for people. And so that might be, acquiring an organization and giving our regional manager an opportunity to grow their career. Potentially create a branch management role for somebody to grow and be promoted. That's really why we're trying to grow. We're trying to take on new contracts to give people opportunity to advance their skill sets or try something different. And that happens daily. And I'm really, really proud of that. And so the growth, the really backdrop is to create opportunities for people. And in an industry that if we don't do that and we're flat and stagnant, there's no place for people to go. And that's not who we are fundamentally. And so that's a key part of how we want to continue to hopefully lead the industry and lead the way to pave opportunities for our folks and expand our footprint to do so. So I think that's one piece. I think our industry, as we move into a recession here, we are quite recession proof. We generally have to make sure we're reliant on our strong customer relationships and making sure we have great communication with them to see how we can adapt to their changing landscape in their organization. So it might be changing coverage levels that we have or coming a unique way of dealing with something to help them with their budgets during a recession. But generally crime goes up during that period. So we do see increases of coverage requests from maybe non-traditional places where people haven't needed security because they haven't had issues.
Right.
Sometimes they do need that during a recession if crime does go up. So, for us, I think to be a leader, you have to continue to look internally to make sure you're doing, as I said before, what you say you're going to do, and stick to your values and your fundamentals to make sure you're living the way you expect yourselves to. Then you need to look outwardly to say, what else can we do to improve and get better? And there's a lot of people that spend a lot of time in our organization thinking about how we can get better. And so I'm really proud of that fact. And I think that's one of the ways that we can continue to be a leader in our market, by focusing on what we're good at and continuing to try to get better.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, we're coming to the end of this chat, but before we go, I want to know what's next for Chad Kalyk. What are some of your short or long-term goals in your career?
Well, I'd be remiss to not say that I love my job.
Yeah, you mentioned that a couple of times.
Yeah, it's I feel privileged to be in the position I am. I feel a lot of responsibility for people to do right by them and the trust they placed in me to be in my role. So I want to continue to get better in my role. It's an interesting thing. Ashley has said this to me over the years as he's taken on more responsibility and the company's grown. But each day, a lot of us are running a company that's bigger than it was the day before. And if you think about that, we add a new contract, add a new branch, we make an acquisition. All of a sudden, my portfolio and my responsibilities increased. And so I have to be constantly adapting. And there's always a learning curve that creates this unique challenge that, I'm fascinated by and really feel fulfilled by. So that's one of the reasons I love my job. No 2 days are the same, but I'm really focused on trying to make sure I own my impact and can really improve as a leader and make sure I'm giving the organization what it needs as the president and steering us into the right direction for the future, if that makes sense.
Definitely makes sense. Chad, this has been an amazing conversation. I want to thank you for being part of the Difference Makers, because you are definitely a difference maker. I'm pretty sure our listeners learned a lot from this conversation. I learned a lot from this conversation and your experience and your vast security industry wisdom. So thank you so much for being here and sharing everything.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate your time.
Take care, Chad. Hey, thanks for tuning in with the Difference Makers. If you want to hear more about the ins and outs of the security industry from real professionals, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share. Also, check out new episodes on the first Tuesday of every month. Till next time.